Imagine this. You're trapped in a Chinese finger trap. The harder you pull, the tighter it holds. Now, what if I told you that's how most of us live our lives? Desperately striving, only to tighten the chains. Stay with me to uncover why relaxing your grip could set you free. Picture yourself standing in front of a locked door. You shove, you lean into it, you force all your weight against it, and nothing happens. Then someone walks up, twists the handle, and pushes lightly. It opens in the opposite direction. That's what forcing life feels like. The harder we press, push, and strain, the more resistance we meet. But some part of us has been trained to believe that effort equals success. So we keep trying, harder and harder, as if the only way forward is through sheer willpower, ignoring all the signs that tell us otherwise. Think about how often we frame progress as a straight line, constant motion, upward and unrelenting. We believe the harder we strive, the more we achieve, and the closer we are to what we think we deserve. This belief didn't appear out of nowhere. It's been drilled into us since childhood. If you don't work hard, you won't be successful. If you don't do something, you'll fall behind. These words, spoken by well-meaning parents, teachers, and mentors, were meant to motivate. Instead, they became chains, shackling us to the idea that our worth depends on how much we accomplish. And so, we grow up measuring our self-value solely through results. Yet, if raw effort was all it took to succeed, why do so many who work hardest feel so stuck? Imagine running on a hamster wheel. You're exhausted, pouring everything you have into it, but there's no progress, just an endless loop of motion. That's the trap. You sprint ahead in circles, convincing yourself it's all necessary because stopping feels wrong. The world praises productivity, rewards the people who seem to do the most, so slowing down feels like failure. It feels like unworthiness. And when exhaustion hits, when no amount of striving seems to fix anything, we tell ourselves we're the problem. Not the system, not the expectations, not the belief itself. Us. This unrelenting push comes at a price. The psychological toll of equating self-worth with achievement isn't just frustration. It's chronic tension, anxiety, and an underlying sense of emptiness. When we base our value on what we produce, we can never rest. The work is never done. A report from the American Psychological Association highlighted how people who tie their identity to productivity are more likely to experience burnout, insomnia, and even depression. It's as if we're running not toward a goal, but away from the fear that we'll somehow prove ourselves inadequate if we stop. And here lies the paradox. The more you push for control, the more out of control life feels. The act of forcing creates friction. It's inherently based on resistance. It's an attempt to impose your will on something that has its own flow. This friction compounds, leaving you drained and overwhelmed. That's why, despite the endless striving, so many of us feel stuck. We're forcing life to follow a script that doesn't fit, and the more it resists, the harder we push. Somewhere in our minds, we confuse resistance with failure. If life isn't bending to my will, I must not be doing enough. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the control you think protects you is actually the cage that keeps you from breathing? Here's the thing. Trying harder isn't solving the problem. It's creating it. When you force something, you're signaling a deeper fear, a fear of letting go. This fear is natural. After all, we've been taught that loosening our grip means surrender or mediocrity. But has forcing really worked? How many times have you thrown yourself into a fight only to leave it feeling even more defeated? How many times have you set a rigid goal only for life to shatter it? The more you try to dominate, the more chaotic things seem to become. The control you seek becomes impossible, always just out of reach. Take a moment to reflect. What if less force didn't mean less progress? What if the way forward wasn't more effort, but a different perspective? Maybe it's not about pushing harder. Maybe it's about easing up and seeing the bigger picture. The locked door you've been slamming into wasn't locked at all. You were just too busy forcing to notice it opened in a different way. Consider this. What might happen if you stopped trying to control everything and allowed life to flow, just for a moment? Let's be clear. This isn't about giving up. Surrendering to life's flow isn't laziness, and it's not weakness. It's terrifying, yes. It's counterintuitive after a lifetime of thinking force equals progress. But it's also powerful, because when we stop fighting the current, we discover something unexpected. All that struggle wasn't necessary. Life wasn't asking for your control. It was asking for your trust. And trust begins with a shift in perspective. Instead of measuring yourself by what you achieve, maybe it's time to ask a different question. Who am I when I stop striving? What do I see when I stop resisting? The way out of this loop isn't about doing more. It's about seeing more clearly. What if you allowed yourself to step off the hamster wheel of constant effort, still your mind, and simply observe what happens next? The answer doesn't lie in force. It lies in something far quieter. Imagine for a moment holding a Chinese finger trap between your fingers. What's your first instinct? Pull, of course. You pull with everything you've got, thinking force will set you free. But the harder you pull, the tighter it holds. And that's the strangest part, isn't it? You don't get trapped because you're weak. You get trapped because you're trying too hard to escape. As soon as you stop pulling and loosen your grip, the trap releases effortlessly. It's counterintuitive, almost absurd, but it's also the perfect symbol for how we approach life's struggles. Here's how the finger trap mirrors reality. When something feels wrong, relationships falling apart, careers feeling stagnant, a personal goal slipping away, our instinct is to fight. We think we can fix the issue by doubling down, exerting more effort, taking control, and forcing some sort of resolution. And it feels logical, doesn't it? We've been taught that effort is the answer to every problem. If you're not succeeding, you're not trying hard enough. But just like with the finger trap, the harder we pull, the more tangled we become. What starts as stress turns into frustration, then burns into full-blown anxiety. Suddenly, the solution becomes the cause of the problem. Take relationships as an example. Have you ever tried to control someone, maybe out of fear of losing them? You overanalyze everything, trying to manage how they feel, act, or respond. At first, you tell yourself it's love or care. But what happens? The pressure pushes them away. The connection frays under the weight of your control. Or consider your career. You're desperate for progress, so you work harder, longer hours, constantly trying to prove yourself. But instead of growing, you burn out. You lose clarity, make mistakes, and suddenly it feels like you're running on empty. Personal goals are no different. How many times have you obsessed over the outcome of something you wanted, only to find that your fixation pulled you further from actually achieving it? The chaos life throws back at us isn't random. Too often, it's our resistance that stirs the storm. Here lies the truth Alan Watts spoke about so often. Life doesn't resist us. We resist life. He described the experience of forcing outcomes as creating turbulence in a calm river. Life, like water, flows naturally. Resistance introduces ripples, waves, chaos, and we often don't even realize we're the ones making the water murky. Watts introduced the idea of wu-wei, often translated as non-action, though that translation doesn't quite capture its depth. Wu-wei isn't about doing nothing, it's about doing without forcing. It's about listening to the flow of things and moving in harmony. Have you ever watched a surfer on the ocean? They don't conquer the wave or command it to bend to their will. Instead, they find balance, yielding to the water's rhythm, letting the wave carry them forward. That's Wu Wei in motion. It's not weak, it's skilled, controlled, peaceful. This practice of non-resistance flips everything we think we know about solving problems. Think about how often the best solutions rise not from overthinking, but from moments of stillness. You know that feeling when a great idea comes to you in the shower? Or when things finally seem clear after a long walk? That's life-finding balance when you step back and let the current carry you. The counterintuitive truth is simple. Sometimes it's not about trying harder, it's about trying less. Solutions often reveal themselves when you stop grasping at them so desperately, like the finger trap loosening when your grip eases. But here's the question that probably nags at you. Isn't letting go the same as giving up? Doesn't it mean you're weak? The answer is no. Releasing isn't surrendering in defeat. It's the courage to trust life's flow. It is brave to stop struggling against the current when the world praises constant effort. It's bold to pause and allow things to unfold when everything inside you demands action. Picture muddy water after a storm. You don't clear it by stirring it more. You let it rest. The confusion, panic, and noise settle on their own. Clarity emerges from stillness, not from more chaos. And that's where the deeper challenge lies, trusting the process. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? Letting go means confronting the fear that things won't work out unless you control them. But hasn't control fooled you before? Think back to all the moments you tried relentlessly to force something, only to see it spiral further out of reach. The fear of stopping feels real, yet the effects of overforcing are often worse. True power isn't in relentless pulling, it's in knowing when to pause, when to allow life to do its part. Like the finger trap, life doesn't release its tight grip when we demand it to. It opens when we align with its flow. What feels like weakness, letting go, is actually strength. It's clarity. It's freedom from the endless war of wrestling with everything you can't control. But, and here's the crucial shift, letting go isn't idle or passive, it's an active, deliberate choice. It takes courage to stop controlling and trust that life's flow includes you, not fights against you. Imagine living this way. What would it feel like to let the water carry you instead of pushing against every wave? What would it feel like to relax into the solution rather than scrabbling for more problems? Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. Just as with the finger trap, easing the grip doesn't trap you further. It frees you completely. Life doesn't need more of your fight. It's waiting for your trust. Picture this, a vast field of bamboo. At a glance, it seems entirely still, almost lifeless. There's no movement, no apparent growth, nothing to convince anyone that something important is happening. But below the surface, quietly, invisibly, that bamboo is preparing. Its roots are spreading wide and strong, laying the foundation for an explosion of life. It doesn't just shoot up overnight without preparation. It spends years growing where no one can see. This patience, this unseen process, is what allows bamboo to grow tall and strong when it finally does break through the soil. Now think about how most of us approach growth in our own lives. Are we really willing to endure those years beneath the surface, where the progress isn't obvious or measurable? Most of us aren't. We're trained to think success should be visible, public, and instant. Society has conditioned us to measure ourselves by grades, promotions, social media likes, some external marker that says, "You're doing well, you're making it." We've equated speed with progress, visibility with worth. It's always about what everyone else can see and validate. And if there's no immediate indicator of success, we feel like failures. But here's the truth. Real, transformative growth doesn't look like that. It doesn't always come with applause or external recognition. Instead, it happens in silence, deep within, where no one, not even you, might notice it at first. This is where the bamboo teaches us something profound. Its greatest work is done in secret. Without strong roots underground, it could never grow tall. It spends years building that foundation. To the outside world, it may look like nothing is happening, but everything that matters is happening out of sight. This idea of unseen growth isn't just limited to nature. It's reflected in how personal growth and creativity often work as well. Studies on creativity and problem-solving show there's something called an incubation period. It's those stretches of time when no visible progress is happening, but the mind is quietly working in the background, connecting ideas, building solutions, or preparing insights. You might call it a breakthrough, but it's only possible because there was stillness and patience leading up to it. What so many of us dismiss as unproductive time is often essential for real transformation. Ask yourself, how often do you focus only on what's visible? How much value do you place on the things no one else notices, the progress no one praises? Think about this. How many inner battles have you fought that no one saw? How much strength have you built quietly while no one even acknowledged it? Maybe you've been pushing forward in ways that don't come with trophies or applause, but does that make the effort any less significant? The bamboo doesn't depend on anyone noticing its roots. It grows because that's what it's made to do. There's something freeing in this perspective. The recognition that you don't need to prove your growth to anyone for it to be real. In fact, some of your most profound transformations will happen when no one is paying attention, when there's no pressure to perform. These shifts are deeper, harder to measure, but they're also far more permanent. They're the kind of changes that don't crumble under stress because they aren't built for show. They're built for you. This unseen growth takes time, and that's where many of us resist. Our culture thrives on urgency. There's this constant pressure to do more, achieve more, show more. And yet the bamboo doesn't rush to grow a single inch before it's ready. That patience, that trust in its own process feels so foreign to us, doesn't it? We're terrified of stillness because we've been taught that doing is what matters. But let me ask you something. How many lessons might you be missing because you're too busy forcing progress? What if the most important growth is happening precisely when you stop striving? The takeaway here isn't that you should stop trying to grow. It's that growth doesn't always need to be forced. Like the bamboo, you might find that the most profound transformations happen when you trust the process and allow things to unfold naturally. Growth doesn't disappear just because you can't see it. It might simply be laying the groundwork for something bigger. Just because it's not loud doesn't mean it's not happening. Sometimes, the quietest progress is the most important of all. Now, think about where in your life this might apply. What if instead of obsessing over visible results, you allowed yourself to trust that the effort you've been putting in is doing its work, even if the results aren't immediate? What if the person you're becoming is already growing beneath the surface, far from the gaze of anyone who might judge or validate it? Like bamboo, your roots might be strengthening for something incredible. But that can't happen if you try to rush it. By letting growth unfold naturally, you aren't giving up control. You're aligning with life's rhythms. This isn't about laziness. It's about trust. Trusting that transformation is already happening in ways you don't need to micromanage. Think of the bamboo's years underground. That unseen work isn't wasted time. It's the foundation for everything that comes after. Maybe the same is true for you. Imagine walking into a room where chaos seems to buzz like an invisible current. People talk over each other, tension hangs heavy in the air, and you can feel the stress vibrating off every person there. But then, your attention shifts. You notice one person, seated quietly, radiating an ease that cuts through the noise. They aren't trying to control the situation, yet somehow their calm changes the atmosphere. Without saying a word, that person becomes a center of gravity in the chaos, drawing others toward a quieter rhythm. Now imagine, what if that person could be you? Here's something most of us don't realize. Our energy speaks louder than words ever can. Whether it's tension, anxiety, or calm, what you carry inside radiates outward, and people pick up on it without even knowing they're doing so. This is called emotional contagion, a process that research has shown affects group dynamics on a profound level. Just as anxiety can spread like wildfire, so can calm. The energy you bring into a room creates ripples, shaping how others feel, act, and even relate to you. And yet, when we feel stressed and overwhelmed, we often assume it's something we can keep contained, as if others won't notice. But they do. The tension we carry leaks into every interaction, creating invisible walls between us and the people we're trying to connect with. When you're stuck in the habit of forcing, of trying to control outcomes and micromanage every detail of your life, that stress doesn't just affect you. It spills over, creating an invisible atmosphere of strain that others unconsciously absorb. And the more you push, the harder it becomes to truly connect. Relationships buckle under the weight of this unspoken anxiety. Colleagues feel the strain of your unrelenting control, even if you never say it aloud. It's as if your tension becomes contagious, spreading to everyone who steps into its reach. And ironically, the more you try to control, the less control you actually have, not just over situations, but over the way people feel around you. Now let's flip this. What happens when you stop radiating tension and start embodying calm? Picture that same chaotic room. You're no longer contributing to the noise. Instead, you meet it with quiet steadiness. People feel the shift, even if they can't explain it. Suddenly, you've become a mirror of calm in the middle of chaos. By letting go of control, you've opened a door for others to find peace too. This is what Alan Watts referred to as the power of presence. It's the idea that our state of being influences more than we think, and by embracing a posture of acceptance and trust, we create an energy that soothes and stabilizes those around us. Think about figures who seem to embody this effortlessly. A leader who remains composed during a crisis inspires trust, even if they don't have all the answers. Their calm reassures others that things will be okay, that the storm will pass. Or a close friend who doesn't try to fix your problem, but simply sits with you in quiet support. Their presence alone eases the weight you're carrying. Neither of these people forces solutions. They don't control the circumstance. They simply bring ease to it. And that's what makes them powerful. The beautiful thing is that this isn't some rare ability reserved for certain people. It's something we can all cultivate. To pause, breathe, and stop trying to force life into submission is to open ourselves to a new kind of freedom. It's stepping out of the frantic energy that turns every interaction into a competition for control. And here's the paradox. When you let go of needing to control everything, people are drawn to you. Calm becomes magnetic. Why? Because it offers relief in a world that feels endlessly tense. When you radiate trust and ease, it creates a ripple effect. Not only do you change how you feel, but you change how others feel too. This isn't abstract. Psychology backs it up. Studies on emotional contagion show that our feelings spread quickly through verbal and nonverbal cues. That means your energy, whether frazzled or peaceful, sets the tone for interactions without you having to say a word. Leaders who model emotional regulation have been shown to boost morale and productivity because calm, like anxiety, is contagious. The difference is, calm creates connection. It draws people in rather than pushing them away. Take a moment to reflect. How does your energy show up for others? When you walk into a room, are you the source of tension or the anchor of calm? It's not about perfection, it's about awareness. Calmness doesn't mean you never feel stressed. It means you've stopped trying to fight or control it. You let the waves come, but you don't let them consume you. And when others see that balance, it reminds them, even subconsciously, that balance is possible for them too. The shift won't happen immediately, but when you stop forcing, when you stop transmitting desperation and start trusting, you change everything. You go from emitting anxiety to emitting stability. You become that person in the chaotic room who others gravitate toward without even understanding why. Calm isn't just a gift you give yourself. It's a gift you offer to everyone around you. And this is worth considering in a world that glorifies constant motion and control. True influence often requires neither. When you embody steadiness rather than tension, you become what Watts described as the mirror of calm. You don't impose it on others, you reflect it, quietly, powerfully, effortlessly. Ask yourself, how might your relationships, your work, even your inner life change if you stopped trying to control and started radiating trust instead? You might find that by letting go of the need to force, you've gained something far greater than control: connection. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a towering cliff, the wind howling around you, the drop beneath stretching into the unknown. Your instincts scream to hold back, to stay rooted to the solid ground beneath your feet. But somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice asks, "What if the wind catches me?" Letting go often feels like standing on that ledge. The fear isn't imagined, it's deep, primal, wound tightly around the belief that releasing your grip will lead to chaos or failure. And yet, if you let the wind hold you, you might find a freedom you've never known. But for most of us, trusting that leap is the hardest part. This fear of letting go runs deeper than most of us realize. It isn't just about keeping jobs, relationships, or life plans on track. It's about control. We hang on to control because we're scared of what might happen without it. We've been conditioned to think that if we don't manage every detail, everything will collapse. Chaos, unpredictability, failure. These are the monsters we believe control keeps at bay. But here's the truth that's quietly uncomfortable to face. Control doesn't give you certainty. It gives you exhaustion. It leaves you stuck in a never-ending loop of calculating, overthinking, and forcefully wrestling with life, as if the harder you grip, the more solid the ground beneath you becomes. Yet, what if the illusion of control is the very thing keeping you from moving forward? Alan Watts described life as something inherently fluid, like water or the wind. He said, "Control isn't power. Real power lies in alignment and trust." Trusting doesn't mean standing back helplessly. It means recalibrating how you approach your obstacles. Control is rigid, but life isn't. It moves, it shifts, it flows, whether you want it to or not. Refusing to trust that flow is like trying to wrestle the ocean into submission. It wastes energy and leaves you with nothing but more resistance. If you've ever sailed, you understand this naturally. When you're on the water, you don't fight the wind. You work with it. The wind becomes your partner. It has its own rhythm, and your job isn't to overpower it. It's to adjust your sails in harmony with its flow. This is where letting go reveals its paradoxical strength. By surrendering to the wind, you don't lose control. You gain direction. You move forward not because you force the wind to cooperate, but because you trust the balance between your effort and the elements themselves. The wind carries you when you stop fighting it. That's the essence of surrender. But here's the key distinction. Surrender isn't defeat. It isn't giving up. Surrender is courage. It's the bravery to admit that you don't need to control everything, and in fact, you can't. The surfer who rides the wave doesn't tame the ocean, they align with it. The gardener who plants a seed doesn't force it to grow, they nurture it, trusting sun, soil, and water to do their unseen work. These are acts of surrender, not of weakness, but of strength. They require trust, patience, and an openness to outcomes you cannot always predict. This shift to trust instead of grip is one of the hardest mental barriers to overcome. Why? Because letting go means facing uncertainty with no guarantees. It asks you to stop anchoring yourself in the fear of what might go wrong and start trusting in what might go right. It means stepping off the ledge without needing to see the whole path below. And that's uncomfortable, deeply so. Our instincts fight against it. But think about it this way. Which has served you better in the past, the relentless need to control or the rare moments when you allowed yourself to trust the process? Watts's teachings urge us to let go of this obsession with control, explaining that life responds when you release the need to tightly manage every detail. He said, "What's meant for you doesn't need to be chased, it only needs space to manifest." Control, like anxiety, blocks that space. It creates turbulence in the flow of life. When you stop emitting desperation, stop forcing and fighting, you allow that flow to move through you, unhindered. Your state shifts. What felt like a constant uphill battle begins to feel more like a dance, a co-creation between yourself and the universe. Take a moment to imagine what that would feel like. Imagine no longer needing to fight every current and knowing instead how to move with it. Picture yourself dropping the mental weight of needing to control every outcome and finding, in its place, a lightness you didn't know you were capable of. What would it feel like right now to stop resisting and start flowing? To adjust the sail instead of yelling at the wind? The unknown remains, yes, but instead of fearing it, you might find yourself curious, open, even inspired by it. Letting go doesn't mean losing, it means gaining the ability to move with life's rhythm. It takes courage to soften your grip, to trust yourself, and to trust the process of life itself. But trust doesn't mean passivity or carelessness. It's an active choice, a practice of alignment. When you stop acting against life and start moving with it, the energy shifts. Suddenly, everything feels a little less heavy. The cliff's edge isn't so terrifying anymore. You realize the wind was never there to fight you. It was there to catch you all along. Up, it's gaining the whole universe, one moment of trust at a time,